All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Excited to be here with you on this finally warm weather Friday. I got in the elevator today and I heard a couple of guys talking about how hot it is outside. And I said, just remember how cold you were in January and be grateful for the heat. And the guy said, yeah, but cold you can put on more clothes and to stay warm. When it's hot, you can't take more off. And uh, while that's true, I'll take the heat. Anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, excited to be here with you. Before I get started, any specific questions that you guys have that you want to talk about that would be helpful?
In case I've missed this, forgive me, but the new ERS and commissions, is there anything I need to be aware of as I get one signed today?
Yeah, actually, thank you. So it's funny because on the that exclusive right to sell, as part of this NAR settlement, um, we can't have anything in the ERS that mentions the MLS or advertising the buyer agent's commission on the MLS. And so, trying to get ahead of the curve, I pulled that out. I submitted it to Dotloop to have them um, put all the fields and everything in there. And generally, I get an email back notifying me that that has been done. And in this case, they didn't do that. They didn't send it back to me. So yeah. So I apologize that. In fact, I got to remember I need to send something out probably on that. Although, to answer your question, the only thing that has changed on it is there were two references in there to putting on the MLS what we would be offering to the buyer's agent as a commission. And all I did is took out the words on the MLS or on MLS in one section. So
Okay, great.
outside of that, everything else is exactly the same. So really not that big of a deal and not huge that anybody would notice. So really the only difference would be of that old one versus the new one there is that after August 17th or on August 18th, I guess, any current listings that we have any reference to the MLS will have to have an addendum done that will remove any reference to that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So yeah. Yep. Great question.
Russ, when will
Yes.
the MLS change the MLS input that has that on there? Do we know?
Yeah. I haven't heard
The
anything yet.
BAC. Okay.
Yeah. I haven't
Is
heard
the new one in the loop?
anything yet from the MLS on that. So my guess is it'll probably be in a week or so before that. Maybe. I don't know.
So the one I'm seeing that was submitted to the loop on June 3rd, if this is the right
Uh-huh.
year, it still has the blanks for the BAC. I'm looking at the blank one.
Oh, you're talking about the MLS data input.
I'm talking about
Correct.
exclusive right to sell listing agreement, agency disclosure. And it says June 3rd, 2024, and it's still saying brokerage fee, and it's still saying the company shall offer agency. So we can still put the BAC in there. We just can't put it on the MLS.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that has come off of that is just any reference to the MLS.
Okay.
So yeah, we're still getting permission from the seller to offer a buyer agent commission. It's just on our old exclusive right to sell. It said that we would market that on the MLS, and I just took out the words on the MLS.
Okay. Looking at that. Perfect.
Cool.
And has the buyer agent commission one been updated?
Say that again. Sorry.
The buyer broker, has that been updated? Or does that have to be, because that had reference to the MLS as well?
I'll have to look at that. I didn't think it had anything I'll need to update that if it does not. So I will double check that. Thank you. All right. If no other questions, then I'll jump into what I was going to share with you. So what I had this week, in fact, let me get it pulled back up here. is we had a scenario come in that I thought it would be helpful and good to maybe talk about how to rescind an offer or a counter offer. But before we do that, before I get into that part of it, what I thought I would start with actually is let's just talk about, and let me blow this up a little bit. What I think is helpful is let's first talk about acceptance, because I want to talk about how to rescind. Because what happened is we had an agent this week who, it was their listing. They received an offer in. They wrote a counter offer back to the buyers, but then after they sent the counter offer, before they had gotten any word back, they received another offer, and they were wanting to then rescind their counter offer and accept the new contract that came in. And so they did, but the broker on the other side of the transaction was really questioning and saying, no, you didn't do it the right way. And so I want to talk about that to make sure everybody is clear of what the quote unquote right way is supposed to be. So let's first start with, though, of what defines acceptance. So acceptance occurs only when all of the following occurred. So you'll notice that it has in bold there only and all of the following have occurred. So in order for acceptance to have taken place, all of these things have to happen. And what it says is, first, the seller or the buyer has signed the offer or the counter offer where noted to indicate acceptance. And B, seller or buyer or their agent has communicated to the other party or the other party's agent that the offer or the counter offer has been signed as required. So that's the first thing that has to happen, is in order for you to have acceptance to have taken place, the buyer or the seller has to have signed it and communicated it. And so keep in mind that so if somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm just calling to let you know that we have signed excuse me, if they say we've signed, you're probably good. But if they just call and say, hey, just want to let you know we've accepted your offer, it would probably be good to just do a follow-up to say, has the buyer or the seller, whichever one it is, signed that as well? Let's see. I got somebody sending me some request here to record the meeting, but it's not anybody that's on here, so I'm saying no. Okay. Anyway, so because it is possible somebody has signed and not communicated, or it's possible that the agent's calling you saying, hey, we're going to accept your offer, but until it has been signed and communicated, then acceptance has not happened yet. Okay. And hopefully that should be pretty straightforward, but any questions on that real quick? Okay, didn't anticipate that there would be. Okay, so now in terms of then, if you were wanting to rescind that counter offer or the offer, then what the process needs to look like is it also, and actually let me pull that back up again. Let me show you one other thing. The other thing to talk about on this is section 18 here under notices, is that except as provided in section 23, all notices required under the REPC must be in writing, signed by the buyer or seller giving notice, and received by the buyer or the seller or their respective agent or the brokerage firm representing the buyer or the seller no later than the applicable deadline referenced in the REPC. So keep in mind that inside of our REPC, it's saying any notices that you do except for acceptance has to be in writing, signed by the buyer or seller, and received by the buyer or seller, their agent, or their brokerage firm. So just kind of keep that piece in mind as well, of that is what has to happen in order for you to deliver a notice. Well, so that's what happened with this particular agent this week. Is what happened is our agent was on the seller side, received the offer in, send a counter offer back, then gets another offer in that the seller just wants to accept that offer. And so what our agent did is our agent sent a text message and sent an email saying, hey, just wanted to let you know we're rescinding our offer, our counter offer, because we got a better offer in, and I apologize that it didn't work out, but that's what's happening. And that's not exactly how it was worded, but basically that was the gist of what the agent sent over. The agent responded via text, in essence, acknowledging by saying, hey, that's not fair, and you know, we put a lot of effort into this. So in essence, acknowledging that yes, they had received the text and they understood what was being communicated. And then same thing, our agent had sent an email to that same agent saying, hey, we're withdrawing or rescinding our counter offer because we got a different offer. And the agent then also responded to that email, also acknowledging that they had received it. And again, not saying, yeah, we got it, but based on the way they responded on the email was clear they had received it and they understood that we were then withdrawing it. So the agent had gone ahead and accepted then the other offer, which, so by the way, let me pause on that for a minute and make sure that that is the process. If you're ever going to rescind an offer or a counter offer, make sure that you are doing that before accepting the other offer. Because if for some reason you accepted the other offer and then as you called or emailed or texted or whatever, if they sent a notice to you saying, hey, we've signed and accepted your offer or your counter offer before you canceled it or rescinded it, excuse me, not canceled, before you rescinded it, then you would be stuck in a scenario where now you had sold the property twice. So make sure you're always going to do the rescission or withdrawal of your offer, your counter offer first before accepting the other one. So our agent had sent that notice, gotten the response back, went ahead and they accepted the offer. And then as I mentioned earlier, the other agent and their broker end up calling our agent and saying, hey, you never sent over to us anything in writing stating that you were withdrawing the offer or the counter offer. So let me show you what that broker was referring to is this form right here. In fact, I gotta, hopefully this doesn't mess it up. I'm gonna drag it to where I can see it a little bit better here. Okay, so there are two forms that are available for you to use. One is the buyer's notice of withdrawal or counter offer or offer or counter offer, and then a seller's notice of withdrawal of counter offer. So on this buyer's notice of withdrawal of offer or counter offer, they're going to go through, fill out, you know, obviously the date, the buyer or the property address. You're going to check the box for the buyer submitted a purchase offer for the property or that the buyer submitted a counter offer. So whichever one the buyer is doing, if it's they're withdrawing their offer, you're obviously going to check that one. If they're withdrawing a counter offer, you would check that. The buyer would sign it and send it over. If the seller is doing it, then you've got a form that you can put in the date and put in the buyer, seller, the address, and then the information here. So now the question then became, is it necessary? Because our agent didn't ever fill out this form, the seller's notice of withdrawal or counteroffer, and send it over. And that's what the other broker was trying to say is, hey, we just went ahead. They said they went ahead and accepted the offer and that they were planning to do their inspection today, Friday, because our agent didn't ever send over this notice of withdrawal of counteroffer. And so, and what the broker was relying on is that notices section of the REPC, where it's saying it has to be in writing, signed by the buyer or seller giving notice, and received by the other party. So they were trying to make that claim. Well, the thing to keep in mind on this is yes, I will say it would be an ideal scenario that you call them and say, hey, we're withdrawing, and then send over this notice of withdrawal. That really probably is the ideal way to do it, because then there is no question as to if it was withdrawn or not. So I want to be clear. I think that is a very, very good idea. But keep in mind also that even though the Rep C says that the notices has to fit those 3 things in writing signed by the buyer or the seller, that Rep C has not been accepted yet between the buyer and the seller. So any of the provisions of the Rep C really are not in effect until that contract is accepted. So I hope that makes sense. So when I called and talked to our attorney about it, our attorney said that there is plenty of case law in Utah saying that a text message or an email or the phone call to the other agent and them responding to it, acknowledging that they've gotten it, is sufficient for that withdrawal. So I guess kind of my message of this for you guys is sending the text message, sending the email, just calling them on the phone and saying, hey, we're withdrawing, all will work. But if you want to not have any question at all, and that's where I guess I'm coming from on this, is the other broker was alluding to the fact that, hey, we're going to sue for specific performance because you didn't withdraw. So like I said, I think we're going to be okay. I don't think there's any issue with any of this. And I think it's sufficient, but just kind of just know if you can get it in writing using one of these forms. That's the whole reason we have these forms available, is so that we can use them. I would recommend, even if it is just, hey, just wanted to give you the heads up on a text message, we're sending over a withdrawal, and then get this signed and sent over. That way there's going to be no question as to if you did withdraw your offer or your counter offer. So, all right. Any thoughts on that or questions that you guys have about it?
I have a question.
Sure.
Say we're on the other side, we're the actual buyer that they sent that email to and they sent that text message to. Say we didn't respond to it. What if we didn't respond to it? We didn't acknowledge it.
Yeah, so on that, it would be a scenario where if somebody had sent you the email and you didn't open it, you would have an argument, I would say, to the fact that we never got your note. You never got the notification to us. But I would say they could also have the argument that, well, it was sent, and I think if you, in your email, it has the timestamp and all that, you probably would have a tough time saying, well, I never got it. So I guess to me, again, this is where I would say, make sure you're doing it in a text message. I would do kind of all of it. Send the email, send a text message, call, and if you can't get a hold of them, maybe even call their broker and just say, I'm just calling to let you know we're withdrawing our offer or counter offer.
So tell me if this is correct, because this is my understanding. If we do use that form and send over that notice of cancellation with that form, and then call them or text them, and even if they don't respond, that would be sufficient? Because you said,
Yeah, I think if you're on the canceling side and you can show, here's when I sent the text, I sent the email, along with the form and everything that you tried to do. Yeah, I think you should be good.
How come the form doesn't have, I know the Rep C hasn't been accepted at that point, but how come they don't have to, the people on the other side don't have to sign it? There's
Yeah,
just,
because again, because you're just at that point, you're just giving notice that, hey, we're withdrawing this offer or this counter offer that we send over to you. So yeah, you don't need their approval on it, because
Wow.
the challenge is somebody could just say, nope, we're going to reject that. So, but I would say, I think what you're saying, though, your point, Julie, is it probably wouldn't be bad to get them to initial it or sign it or something, just so that you had proof that they had received
Acknowledged it.
Yeah.
But if you send
But
it dot
that's-
loop and they open it, it's going to show it.
Correct. Yep. If you did it
Because
dot
I've
loop,
done
and
that
you could
before.
show that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe
that
we
would
could
work.
tell them too, in that conversation back and forth, whether it's text or email, hey, I'm going to send a form over to, you know what I mean? Just kind of
Yep.
solidify that. So they're kind of looking out
Yep.
for it.
Yeah, I think definitely it would be a good idea to just say, hey, I'm going to be sending this form over. And so that way, again, you're still valid having just sent the email, the text. but always going to be better. You're just never going to have a problem if you also then follow it up with that, having your client sign that they've withdrawn it. Not to mention that it gives you even a little bit of more protection that your client could never come back and say, I never told you to do that. Not that you're probably going to have that issue, but
I think the issue here is time is really of the essence in a situation like this, that you, it may take you some time to get the signatures on that form. So start with the other and follow up with the form.
correct. For sure. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Even if you were to just say, hey, I'm going to get this sent over, but I just wanted to give you the heads up. Because if you don't, you're right, Rebecca, if they happen to call you beforehand, if you tried to just get the form in place first, they may call you in the meantime and say, hey, we accepted your offer or your counter, and then now you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I really appreciate this because I thought you had to use that form. You know, you had to use that form and you couldn't just send like an email or a text. So that's really good to know that you could send the email or the text, and then you could follow up with the form.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I-
exactly what Rebecca was saying is it's you got that time is of the essence, and if your client's saying, hey, we want to cancel this, you got to do it before the other person accepts. Now, if you're on the buyer side and they accept it and you have a due diligence, then well, no harm, no foul. You could just still cancel based on that. But yeah,
Well,
good point.
I think these forms, I mean, we know these forms are to keep us from practicing law, and they've been reviewed and they try to keep us out of jail, right? But anything in writing rules. And so we can't let a form and the time it takes take the valuable time in that essential situation.
Yep.
On the buying side, just to keep in mind, so you said we can use due diligence. I've seen it come through where the offer was, upon acceptance, the earnest money was non-refundable, and the buyer decided, oh, we need to back out of this. And so they quickly called and said, hey, we're going to get out of this contract. So, there's a scenario where I think anytime you're trying to rescind an offer or a counter offer, the time is critical, getting that in there. And Julie, when you asked, should we have the other party sign it? I don't necessarily think you need to have them sign it because you're not under contract. You don't have an agreement between the two of you. You're just saying, I don't want an agreement with you. And so I'm going to tell you no. Once we have a contract, and now we have to have both people agreeing to certain things. Right now, we don't want a contract. I just want to tell you that I'm not in the contract. So, could you get them to initial it? Sure. Do I think it's necessary? No, I don't think it's necessary to have them sign the acknowledgement of it. Just having the fact that you've given it to them, whether it's the form or an email or a text message. But I would say that if your client wants out of something, it's your job to get them out as quick as possible.
Right. So if they don't respond on the other side, they're mad, emotional, whatever, like you're covered, but you still feel kind of like you're not covered.
Well, I think as long as you've gotten, and what I told the agent before we ever heard anything from the broker was, as long as he had gotten a response, his phone saying it was delivered, but in this case, they responded to the text, and it was clear by their response, they understood, like you don't have to worry at all at that point because they've acknowledged that you rescinded or withdrew, and before they accepted. So
I think for this broker to make such a mess out of it just shows that he doesn't know the premise of real estate law.
Well, he wanted his client to get the deal. So he was doing playing hardball and saying, no, you can't do that. You need to do this, because some agents who don't know the rules might say, oh yeah, I guess we are probably under contract with you, and kill the deal. So you're right. You're absolutely right, Rebecca, that, you know, probably didn't know the rules on it, but he also could have just been trying to intimidate you, which is one of the reasons we have this call for you guys, is so that you're not intimidated when somebody says it's the wrong way, when you know how to do it the right way.
So what if they don't respond at all to you? They're just mad and they're doing the silent thing, and how are you covered?
Well, that's great that that they haven't responded, because chances are then even if they didn't, more than likely your counter offer or your offer probably lapses anyway, and then it doesn't matter. But in the event they did call, and you hadn't heard anything and they called, immediately answer the phone call with, "We withdrew our counter or our offer." But like I say, I think as long as you can show, especially like on a text, when you send it and it says delivered, or some agents have the read receipt and you see that it says read, like for sure you're good then, because we have proof there that it was read at that time. So yeah, just do everything you can. Like I say, just if they didn't respond, that's where I would say then call their broker, call the office, talk to somebody at the office to say, I just wanted to make sure that we've communicated this to your brokerage.
Yeah, you can never overdo it, right?
Yeah, when it comes to this kind of stuff, better to be safe. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, any other questions before I let you go for the week? All right. Thank you all for being on here, and thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time to
Thank
be
you.
with us. Yep.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.